Welcome everybody. So today we're going to be looking at how to make sprig molds. So we're going to create our piece that we're going to make the mold of. We're going to create the container where we're going to add the plaster, and we're going to learn how to use a mold release to make sure that our plaster doesn't stick to what we are, making our mold on. And we're going to look at some common mistakes like undercuts. All right, so to start off with, we want to look at what kinds of shapes are good and what an undercut is. So if you looked at this from the side, an undercut would be any area where the mold comes underneath where the clay is going to go. So I do have another video showing you how to use the sprig molds, but any part of the plaster that comes over and prevents the clay from releasing, that is an undercut. So these two pictures are if you are looking at your mold from the side. So this one right here, so this part right here has no undercut, but this part right here and right here, that has an undercut. This right here, undercut, undercut, no undercut, undercut, undercut. So if you have any areas like that, then when you try to pull the clay out, it's gonna get stuck and this little piece is gonna rip off. So we don't want that to happen, right? So shapes that are okay, if it's got beveled edges, even a tight bevel, so like almost square but not square, tight bevel is okay. Curve that's like flat like this is okay. This is okay. This, as long as it doesn't go like, as long as it's not like too far over to the side, this shape is okay. Okay, 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 because there's nothing preventing the clay from coming out. But things that are really hard to do or do create an undercut tend to be squares, because even if you're like super good, a lot of times squares are really hard. This kind of a shape clearly has an undercut under here. This part's good, but this part right here would have an undercut. This part right here, like this has got a big undercut. This part right here, undercut, undercut. This part right here, like this one might be okay, but this one, and this one and this one, those would all have undercuts. So to do this, I like to use the back side or the slick side of my bat. You can do this on top of a piece of paper as well, that would work too. But you wanna keep them fairly shallow. If you try to make something that's real tall and it's like super thick, that's harder to use on an actual project. But it really kind of depends on what you're going for. So like today, I'm just gonna make like a super simple dome shape so you can kind of see just the process. Okay, so like for me, I wanna make this as close to perfect as I can, because whatever this is gonna, like, it's gonna look literally exactly like this once I put this on here. Okay, so like once I start making sprigs using my sprig mold that we're creating, it's gonna look literally the same. So if I have a crack in here, it's gonna have a crack in there. If I have, something funky, it's gonna be funky. If it's not a circle, then none of them are gonna be a circle. It copies what you make exactly, so you really wanna spend some quality time. Now, what I just did for mine, I used the shape of my finger to already kind of like create that slope that's gonna be okay on the edge. So I created that slope, and then I really want to kind of blend it just a little bit around the edges. Now I can use my finger, I can use a tool, but you really want to get it stuck onto the bat, or if you're using a piece of paper or whatever it is you're using, usually a slick surface works the best, right? And you're just gonna kind of blend around and then really spend some quality time making it real nice. Now, this is the part where you can start adding stuff in. So like if you wanna add in, like if you wanted to make this a flower and you wanted to add in some dots, you can absolutely add in some dots, but you have to be careful how far do you go in, because if you go real far in, you're creating an undercut. So if you're doing this, you only want to go like halfway or less. And if you're doing something like that, it's got to be on the top. If I try to go in from the side, I'm creating the undercut. Now on a side, if I wanted to make this, like I could make this a flower shape, but if I wanted to add in some patterning on the side, as long as I'm not creating an undercut, then I can make this look like whatever I want, right? And there's some really fancy molds out there. So now that I have this, once I've designed it exactly the way I want, now I need to build a wall around it. So I already pre-rolled it out, but I have a slab that is long and skinny. I cut one side straight. And now when you do this, you want to leave yourself at least a finger width, like at least a ½ inch all the way around. Okay, so around your thing. If you have enough for like 3/4 or a full inch, that's probably even better. So I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna wrap it around like that. I'm gonna cut through both sides at an angle, and I'm gonna get rid of my extra from the inside and the outside. Now, I don't actually have to slip and score this, because this is just to keep the plaster from pouring out, okay? So I'm going to, oh, you know what? I'll put it right there where the little weird ring is. Okay, so I'm gonna make sure that this is nice and centered as I can. I'm gonna blend a little bit right here, but like I said, since I'm not making a huge mold, I don't have to slip and score this. It just has to be able to hold plaster. And then I'm gonna push real firmly down around the edges of the clay to make sure that it's stuck. So I'm just pushing down like this. So I'm pushing that way because I want it to be stuck real good onto the mold. So once I'm at this stage, if I'm making, before you add plaster in, if I added plaster in right now, this part right here would stick to the plaster and it'd be really difficult. So we have a mold release in our class that we use. We only use this paintbrush for the mold release. I'll show you where it is in class. I'll have it out just during this project. But literally you just take a little bit of the mold release and you gently paint any exposed plastic. And you want to make sure you get all of it. If you get a little bit of bubbling, make sure you pay special attention to the edges around your actual project. You don't have to paint like on the actual clay itself, but you want it roll right up next to it, okay? So if you get a little bubbling like that, that's okay. Now we could set this to the side and go mix up our plaster if we're using it today, or wrap it up really, really good in plastic. So once you have mixed your plaster and you've added your plaster in and you're ready to take this off and take a look at your mold. Now this one I made one that's gonna be good and one that I'm gonna show you what happens with an undercut. So now that my plaster is hard, I can take this extra off. Plaster does tend to explode in the kiln. So this clay that's got plaster on it, we're just gonna throw it away. Don't recycle this clay. Okay, and because I used that mold release, this came off really easy. If I didn't use the mold release, this would have been very difficult. Now you can already kind of see the difference between the two, right? So like this one, you can see it's all kind of raggedy, and this one you can see that it's really nice and smooth. This is the one where I made it really connect to the bat, and this is the one that's I'm gonna show you has an undercut. So just like before, you can either take an extra bit of clay and you can try to wiggle it out like this. But if that's not working, especially since it's the first one, you might need to just like stick your needle tool in and pull it up. So this one came out pretty easy. If there's any little funky bits or something, you could do a real gentle sanding, but this one should work pretty good. But you can, like, if I make this one, you can see there's actually a little bit of fingerprints and stuff in there. Now this one, like, if I try to take this out, no matter how much, like, I try to wiggle this thing, it does not want to come out. Like, this is not working, right? So the reason why that is, if I dig it out and pull it towards the center, I can eventually get this out, but it's stuck because of that undercut that I was talking about. That's what an undercut does, right? So let me get the clay out. All right. So this right here, you can see if I stick my finger underneath here, there's this whole bit right here that is creating the undercut, and it's not letting my clay come out. So if this is my sprig mold and I have an undercut that's that bad, I probably just want to make a new one. I can take some sandpaper and sand it, and this is a really simple shape, so I could probably do okay. But if it was a really complicated shape and it was like the center of a flower and it had all this other detail, trying to sand this one bit would be really difficult without messing it up. So make sure no undercuts, because you won't be able to get it out of the mold without destroying it. And spend some quality time making your original design real nice and smooth. One last thing. So before you use this mold, you can kind of see there's like a little bit of lip on the back. If I just push this on the table a whole bunch, I'm gonna end up breaking a bunch of the plaster off. So just sand the edge a little bit over the garbage can before you use it, and wait at least a day for this to fully dry before you use your actual mold, because if it still feels wet, then it's going to be harder for your sprig to release. All right, thanks everybody.